Que de Jésus sauver le monde, que l'univers vous soit soumis, en vous un autre espace fonde. Seigneur, Seigneur, vous nous l'avez promis, vous l'avez dit, votre promesse fait notre espoir, notre bonheur. Je bénirai dans ma tendresse les enfants de mon sacré cœur. Que de Jésus sauver le monde, que l'univers vous soit soumis, en vous c'est notre espace fonde. Seigneur, Seigneur, vous nous l'avez promis, vous l'avez dit, Sauveur fidèle, votre amour nous révélait, le cœur brillant, pour moi de zèle, par le mien sera consolé. Que de Jésus sauver le monde, que l'univers vous soit soumis, en vous c'est notre espace fonde. Seigneur, Seigneur, vous nous l'avez promis.
And it was just after World War II. I mean, Budapest was blasted. We walked across the border into Austria, and we get to Austria, and my mother went knocking on the Sacred Heart door and said, "Could you help us?" It was very dangerous. Dangerous for the sisters and dangerous for us. So they said, we have a cell, one of the nuns' cells available, and the three of us were there, and we really weren't allowed to mingle with anybody. We eventually came to America. I ended up getting involved. We had an mosque in Genoa. And I took my plate and I said, "Do you speak English at this table? That's the only question." And yes. So I said, "Well, I went to school in Hungary." And she said, "Well, I went to school in Vienna." And so I said, "I have wonderful memories of how they helped us." And she said, "When were you there?" And I said, "Well, when were you there?" She said, 1,000,000 years ago. I said, "I was there 1,000,000 years ago." And so I told her my little story. And she said, "You were the ones we were praying for."
It taught me the value of commitment. It taught me the value of the meaning of love and of promise. It taught me to accept terrible disappointments and great joys, respect, love, gratitude, and to learn that things are not necessarily God's will, but He allows them to happen for the best of us, even if we don't understand it. So the nuns taught us a lot, right? They taught us you gotta really hang in there. My graduation in our long white gowns with our red roses in the chapel, which is so exquisite, and Reverend Mother Lamy was our Reverend Mother, and I remember walking down the aisle, coming out of the chapel, and just collapsing in her arms and saying, "I don't want to go." And she said, "You'll always be back. You'll never leave us." It gives me chills when I think of it, because it certainly was true, wasn't it?
Boarding was so different because we ate our meals together. We got up every morning to a nun coming in and with a little container of holy water, and you'd cross yourself, Sacred Heart of Jesus, Immaculate Heart of Mary, I give you my heart. And that started your day. I mean, it was just the right way to start the day. I attribute who I am today and the family I have today and everything to those wonderful nuns that really raised me. And my education, my experience in the world have all contributed to the fact that I was raised by the religious of the Sacred Heart.
it was decided I had to go to Sacred Heart. I'll never forget when I walked in that gate, the Lord said, "This is where you're going to be, and this is where I want you." And I loved that school with all the love in my heart. It was wonderful. The nuns taught us that anything you put your mind to, you can do, and especially if you put it in God's hands, because He never fails us. I was so often in trouble and so bad.
You were good. You were Montaire.
I was not Montaire. Sugar Hillary was Montaire. I never got any ribbons. In fact, we used to have preems. Remember preems? Oh, God. And the whole class would go to preems on Monday morning. And they would read your name and whether you got très bien or bien. And one time I got assez bien. And I said, "What for?" And they said, "Because you were impudent." I had to go look it up in the dictionary because I didn't know what it meant.
We were always taught to think and to question. I go back to the Sacred Heart idea of question, question, question. And so I don't always agree with everything you see now, but that's fine. I feel perfectly fine about that. And you know what? No matter where we are, we're sisters. It's amazing. You just run into everybody and we pick up where we were.
As a product of the late 60s and early 70s, there was a lot of feminism that was I was seeing, feminist movement. And at first I had thought, well, these women are nuns and Sacred Heart, I mean, how are they feminists? But they were. And getting back to the role model, I could see that by the role models that I had. I was introduced to feminism when I got to Duchenne, which was way before when I was in college and as a lawyer or whatever. It started way early. They just weren't calling themselves that. And they're still feminists, but it's just not written across the chest.
St. Madeleine Sophie had the brilliant idea that nothing was so scary because she'd lived through the Great Terror in France, where the Jansenism was very, very concrete and very powerful. And her epiphany or her message was, God loves you, you don't have to be scared all the time. So that changed my whole psyche, having been in the Sacred Heart. Now when I look back on it, how did they get that ethos or that kind of theory of education or whatever you want to call it, culture? It was from her. It gave me confidence, I'd say, confidence. But also a sense of charity, that the people really did love you in the school, and they were cultured in the sense that they weren't screaming and yelling and hitting people with rulers and all that kind of stuff. There's a love between the people that is unspoken and it's strong. We had those preem things, or we had, what do you call those things? Oral exams. You stand up and they'd say, who was the difference between Francis and St. Dominic? And I was praying I'd get that one. It was really simple and easy. It wasn't like, who were in the 100 Years' War, who won, how many battles were they, where did it happen, where did the Huguenots come from, the southwest of France? They give you 30 questions, there were 30 kids, and you were supposed to study all the answers, and then they'd put the questions on a silver tray, and somebody would come with white gloves, and you'd pick the question. And the Reverend Mother would be sitting next to the Mistress General, the principal, and they'd scream out, question number 4, and whoever had question number 4 would stand up, and then they'd read out the question. Like, how many wives did Henry VIII have, and why did he get rid of them, or something? Now, most people knew that, but if they asked you about some king like 50 years before, you might not know. So you're praying, please don't give me that one. And so you had to stand up and answer the question. So by the time you had done that for 4 years, you could stand up in a classroom with a lawyer in law school where they're picking on you, and they're almost all other boys, and you're a girl, and you could do it. where a lot of other people didn't have that kind of torture. It's like being in the Girl Marines, you know?
And I did learn at Country Day really the value of right and wrong, and that was every Monday at Preems, if you had not performed, it was made public that you were in error. I was in error an awful lot, but there were some RSCJs who saw me for what I was worth, the value of sort of being a little imp at times, and never discouraged me. I mean, they would correct me, and I was certainly disciplined, but never discouraged my spirit.
I think the RSCJ or teachers all teachers at Newton taught us that we could practically do anything. They didn't teach us that there were any challenges in the road path. They gave us the confidence to go forward without thinking that we couldn't do anything. It was just, you wanted to do something, you figured out how to do it.
It just never occurred to me that I couldn't do the same things that other people could do. That's a terrific attitude. So for girls, I recommend it.
So when we were hidden and I was a baby, it was 1945, so at the end of the war almost. They couldn't eat, they had the coupon and it was not possible. And the poor nuns shared everything. The SS followed them. And they came back home, and after a few moments, the three SS entered and said, there is somebody here who's hidden, and we follow them, and we must look at that. The Reverend Mother Saladini said, yes, you can look everywhere if you want, and we were a lot of family hidden there. She said, but before we have to go to the church and pray together. So they went to the church, two youngs, and the captain. And the Reverend Mother started to pray in silence, and he started praying. All of them were praying. And this man started crying, and he said, he turned and said, let's go. This is amazing because it was the end of the war, so maybe he understood that everything was lost and didn't want to continue to do something against other people. And this, I think, it's a great experience and shows the faith of this religious. In a moment like that, everybody would be upset, and she thought about God. And this is great, I think.
I was fortunate in that I was raised by parents who were really good people. They were very solid and very clear. But I think that it was between them and that school that I got my moral compass that really has guided me all my life. Sacred Heart values to me are just indescribably important. They form a foundation that allows people to make a living through the education, but to make a life through the philosophy. And I don't know how you can exceed that.
The educators that taught me, the religious who formed me. When I failed, it wasn't as a child, you're bad. It was, you need to grow. You need to rethink. You need to refocus. It was always, isn't this interesting? Isn't this exciting? The religious always frame things for you to look to the future. There's not a Sacred Heart graduate from my school, and I believe this is true of all schools, that can't tell you the goals and criteria and don't live those goals and criteria. That's a wonderful gift to have. As for someone so absolutely brilliant in a philosophy of education and the goals and criteria to say to you, I'm going to give you an authentic map in order to live your life. And I really think that's been the difference in my life.
What I learned there was that I had talents to be used for the world. I got that message that I'm here for other people. That the world's a big place and it needs our energy. And so it's very natural. You know, we do it because we're Sacred Heart people. The vision of Sophie was written for us today. And how the vision of Sophie is all about integrity. You take all those goals and you've got the wholeness of who we are. What a gift for us today that our Sacred Heart education is not going anywhere, because it's of the past and it's certainly of the future because it's so foundational. You know, it's a beautiful thing.
The goals and criteria are unique to Sacred Heart, but the qualities that they teach are not unique to Sacred Heart students, that they apply to everybody within a comprehensive, functioning society. And I would say that my goal as a graduate of the Sacred Heart community would be to share those goals and criteria with the people I come in contact with, you know, because I think that, you know, loving as God loves, studying and learning, helping those in need, being a friend to all, and making wise choices, the 5 goals, are applicable to everybody. And I know that I will never forget them, and I hope that by sharing it with others, I'll be able to perpetuate the Sacred Heart community and values, but also just help to better the world.
You know, we expected the nuns and the religious for so long to carry the responsibility of the mission forward. And if we really think about what they instilled us with, we should all feel a sense of responsibility to carry the mission. We need to find a way as an organization, as AASH, to engage with the schools and educate the schools on the importance of being involved with us and the importance of the alumni to their school in so many ways.
There are now 2 generations almost of young women and young men who are growing up in a framework of Sacred Heart education with lay people leading the way. It's really listening and learning with one heart. They're going in the right direction. Now, you know, I'm not sure I'm talking about a story. I think it's more a legacy. And maybe I want that to be on the record, because I think, particularly for our alums that had the old experience, and I shared that with them, I think they need to know that this new experience it's remarkable. And if you go to a school today and you see what's happening there, you can't help but be impressed by the fact that those students, they're getting as much and in some ways more than we could have received. AASH, like the schools, has an extraordinary past history and a rich legacy that has been passed on to us. We are at a point as an alumni community where I think we need to link that past-present modality with a present-future modality and really begin to look at and ask ourselves, where do we want to take what has been so rich in our lives in the next 5, 10, 15 years? I'm excited about that. It's a challenge and a change, and those things they're daunting. It's not going to be easy, but I think it's a really thrilling prospect for all of us that are involved in the Sacred Heart family, and particularly with AASH, that we have a great future ahead of us.
One.
You got it!
Oh, God.
You got it!
Well, thank you. I tried. Really. Because before I already got it down. Oh, shoot. Oh, yeah, I just learned. How about it? I can't wait. But,
if they weren't lucky enough to go to a Sacred Heart school, you know, and they were lucky enough to marry a Sacred Heart woman, they have had a wonderful life.